Hi there, I'm Kristen and I'm with Jimmy Bean's Wool, and today we are going to talk a little bit about blocking. This is actually, we're going to call this video Blocking 102, so if you haven't already watched Blocking 101 that I did about a year or two ago, you should definitely watch that one first. This is a little bit more advanced, although blocking is really not that hard and you really shouldn't be afraid of it. I just wanted to do another video to cover a couple of the things that I didn't get to cover in my first video. So, as you can see, I've got a bucket here in front of me, and Nicole's going to kind of zoom down. We're in a very short room, so she's going to have to kind of do a lot of like up and downs looking at the bucket and the items, so you'll probably see a lot of my dress and not my face, but that's okay. So I've got some items soaking in this bucket here. I've got lukewarm water, and I've actually got two garments. One of them is a garment of mine that I knit a while back, and I blocked it initially. And we're going to talk about reblocking older items. I kind of do a regular, I'll go back through and look at stuff after about a year of wearing, and I'll reblock stuff after a while because if you wear it enough, it probably needs to be washed and soaked anyway. And B, a lot of times it'll lose its shape, or sometimes just depending on what yarn you used, it might not be laying the same way that you want it to. So yeah, so I reblock items frequently. And then I've also got a piece in here that belongs to Nicole that's a new piece that has kind of a lace detail on one edge. And so we're going to talk about blocking out lace pieces, because that's something I did not cover in my first video. If you are interested in learning how to block hats, or just in general blocking techniques, that's a really great, those are topics that I kind of covered in the first one. So today we're going to really talk more about lace and reblocking and washing older items. So we'll start with the lace piece that we've got in here from Nicole. Oh, and I should mention too, I've got lukewarm water in this bucket, and also we just happen to have this bucket laying around. At home I have white plastic tubs that are about 8 inches high, and I usually will do, they actually fit right in my sink, in my kitchen sink, and I just do it in there. And the reason I use those is because, you know, like your kitchen sink, you use chemicals sometimes to clean it, and even if you don't, like, it's not always the cleanest part in your house when you think it was, unless you're scrubbing your sink after every single use, like when you're putting food down there, you know. Let's be honest, I know I don't, I'm sure most people don't. So chances are it's not the cleanest place to be soaking your knitted garments. If you want to scrub it ahead of time and then just block it right in the sink, that's totally fine too. I'm kind of lazy, so I like to keep my my white buckets around the house just so that if I need to soak something, I've got it ready to go and I can block it in an instant and I'll have to clean the sink first. So I always have that going, and then I'll put lukewarm water, about a gallon, or just, you know, to fill the bucket up about halfway. And then, depending on how many garments I have, of course. And then I use a wool wash. And I've got a couple of examples. We carry two different kinds of wool wash here at Jimmy Bean's. We carry the Yukon, which they come in bottles. We just carry the little one-shot packets. And each little packet has enough to do one soak. So it's really nice. We also carry soak wash. And again, we also have the little to-go containers for them as well. These are really great for traveling. I use them all the time when I go on vacations or trips where I'm staying in a hotel and you know, maybe I want to wash my bathing suit because, you know, sometimes they smell like chlorine. You don't want that to like stink up your suitcase. So, or, you know, if you're only taking a weekend bag, you know, but you're going for a week, like I went to Hawaii recently, and it was really nice to be able to wash some of my items in the sink in the hotel with one of these, like halfway through the week without having to do a whole load of laundry. So, anyway, these are really handy. They're also great for your hand knits because they're non-toxic, biodegradable, good for the environment. The Yukon ones in particular have lanolin in them, so it's like a natural lanolin. It puts it back into the wool and kind of protects your wool. So it's good. If you're allergic to lanolin, just be aware of that. And they are scented, some of them. So this one's grapefruit. The one I'm using is the Rapture Scent, which is designed by Kristen, and it's a jasmine scented one. They sent us some samples, so I was trying them out today. It was kind of cool. Soak has some really awesome scents as well, and both companies make an unscented version. So depending on whichever company you decide to support, they're really great. I always recommend a wool wash over regular laundry detergent for your hand knits, essentially. Reason being is because they're a lot gentler on your products, and also you don't have to rinse them. So you don't have to run it through a rinse cycle or, you know, do a lot of extra handling of your garments. You kind of don't want to agitate the wool too much, so this kind of minimizes that amount of agitation that you need. You can also use this in your washing machine on a gentle cycle with you know, your lingerie, or lingerie being just, you know, underwear and all that stuff. Not necessarily your extra sexy stuff, but or that too. Anyway, anything that's delicate, you can put your delicates in the wash and use this stuff with it. It's much better than woolite. I think woolite has a lot of chemicals in it that you probably don't want to be putting in your hand knits, and even in the stuff that you're putting next to skin anyway. So this is a really good alternative to that. I highly recommend it. So we're going to start with blocking Nicole's beautiful cowl that she's finished. What's the name of this one again?
The biscuit cowl.
Biscuit cowl. I keep wanting to call it the crumble cowl. I don't know why. But yeah, biscuit cowl. It's really pretty. She knit it out of Tosh Merino Light. And this color is called Fragrant, which is perfect because the wool wash we've used today is very fragrant. So I'm just kind of gently squeezing as much of the moisture out as I can first. I always do this, but I try not to pull on it. I just sort of like gently get as much out as I can before, I'm going to set this down on the ground here, before I put it in a towel. So if you have blocked before, you know that you want to get as much of the moisture out of your piece as possible before you actually block it. So I'm going to use this towel here. When I do this at home, usually I will, I'll roll everything in it, and then I'll kind of just like put it on the ground and kneel on it. I'll get put my whole body weight into it, because that will actually get a lot of it out. So that's probably the best way to do it. And then I just roll it. So roll it a few times all the way, and then I just put pressure on it to get all of it soaked up. And because this is such a lightweight yarn, we might not even need a second towel. We'll probably just block it right on this towel because I don't think there's going to be as much water. If it's a really big piece, I would have a couple of towels handy, and I would probably wrap it in 2 towels and then block it on a 3rd dry towel, so that, especially because I do this on my floor at home or on a table, and you don't really want to put your still damp knitted piece and block it out on wet towels on like your carpet or your wood floors or whatever it is that you're going to pin it on. Just because, you know, you don't want to create any mildew situations. That would not be good. Put those aside here. So now that we've got our piece all as dry as we can get it, then I lay the towel out here. I'll do the lighter side so you can see better. Okay, so this cowl is unique in that it just has the lace part on one edge. So what we're going to do first is we're going to block out the straight edge, and we're going to pin all along the straight edge. But first I'm going to look here and see where the repeats in the lace pattern are, because when I pin these out, I'm going to pin them like this, and so there's going to be points. And what I want to do is make sure that I'm pinning, because I'm going to be pinning 2 sides together. This is a cowl, and so I've got, you know, it's folded in half essentially on here. And so I want to make sure that I'm matching up my parts that I'm going to pin out exactly so that I pin them out properly on both sides. So it looks like it's pretty well matched up. Looks like this is has an even number of lace repeats, so we're good. Are these nups? Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. This is a cute pattern. Biscuit cowl. This is from one of Jared Flood's.
I believe so, yes.
Is it?
No, that was the last one I did.
Oh, okay.
This is somebody else.
Okay,
But
well.
it's free on Ravelry.
Oh, nice. Gotta love those freebies on Ravelry. Okay, so I'm going to pin my corners first. And usually when you've knit something, it gives you your finished dimensions. And you can block it to those dimensions exactly if you want, or you can just block it to whatever seems right. You don't have to block it exactly to what it says, but it's just kind of up to you. Blocking is a really great tool though for if you've knit something and maybe your gauge is a little tight or it didn't quite turn out the size that you wanted. You can kind of fudge that a little bit with blocking. It allows you to really kind of adjust those issues in this final process. Okay, so I'm blocking my edge, and I've got some ends here that Nicole will weave in when the blocking part is done. You can either block your ends in before or after. It's really no big deal either way. Sandy, one of the gals that works here, one of her biggest recommendations with blocking is when you're weaving in your ends ahead of time, make sure that you leave them uncut. So you've woven in your ends. And is that what you've done on here? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you've got some long ends. Yeah, Nicole didn't cut hers, and the reason she didn't do that is because when you block stuff, it spreads it out, it expands, it makes your stitches bigger, and it will adjust the length of those that are already woven in. So once you've blocked it, it should be as stretched as it's going to be, and then that's when you'll want to cut your pieces so that those stretched out woven in ends are all still contained. Because if you cut them too short, you run the risk of it coming, if you haven't tied a tight enough knot or anything like that, it can definitely cause them to come undone. So I've put some pins here along the side. I did the corners first, then I did the middle, then I did in between the middle and the corners. I don't really know if we're going to have to do more than that with this, but we'll kind of see as it goes along here. So I'm going to pin out my edges now, and I'm going to start, I think I'm going to start in the middle on this one. I usually will kind of play it by ear based on what the piece looks like, but this one I think the middle is a good place to start. I'm going to pin out, I'm going to grab both sides of it, I'm going to pin out this. Now if you were doing a shawl like the one I'm wearing, you would have your top edge that is all straight because this is triangular. And so I would pin this whole top edge, most of it at least, first before I pinned out my lacy edge at the bottom, which is exactly what I did when I blocked this. So, but this, because we've got, actually I'll take that off, because we've got, you know, it's basically one on top of each other because it's a loop, so you're going to pin both the top and the bottom together. So, do you want these pretty pointy?
Yes.
Okay. What's nice about going really pointy is that they'll relax a little bit too once it's dried and you take the pins off. So if you want it just somewhat pointy, go a little bit further than what you would want actually to happen, because you may not pin it out very much because you don't want it to be super pointy, but then it won't even look pointy at the end of the day. So you do want to go a little bit more dramatic as you're pinning it out. And you want to make sure that your lace pattern is looking really open too, because you worked so hard to make that lace pattern and you want to make sure that it's going to show. So it's definitely good to kind of make it really dramatic at first, because yarn is very springy, as most of you probably have discovered by now, and it does bounce back to some degree. So now I've pinned out my center and my corners, and this is good. I think I'm going to pin the sides a little here, just to kind of keep the shape of the rectangle kind of going there, since those corners are pulling up pretty good. Alright, there we go. Alright, and so I've got my two corners, and I've got my middle, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just work my way, and like I'm going to work, so I'll do another middle one from here, and then I'll do the other side, and then I'll just switch, so you kind of work back and forth. I do the same thing. When I'm pinning on a shawl like that, I would pin the top, and then I would pin the middle, and then I would work my way evenly in between. And you'll find too, as you go, sometimes you have to kind of switch it up a little bit, or you may have to readjust some as you go as well. Now, you can get what's called a blocking board, which is amazing. I haven't invested in one yet. So for those of you that are just getting started with knitting or trying out blocking for the first time, I wouldn't necessarily make the investment until you're really like doing it frequently. They're awesome though. Blocking boards are really great for getting really accurate pins on all of your lace pieces. Sandy has an awesome one that she made on her own. You can probably figure out how to make one using stuff you find at the hardware store. So they're pretty cool to have for sure. You can also get, I think we have one called the Knitter's Block. It's from Cocoa Knits. And that one's neat too because it's like rubber, what do you call those? You know, like they almost look like those things that kids have in their playrooms that are like puzzle pieces and they're like rubber, you know what I'm talking about? What do you call those? Anyway, they're mats, like rubber mats you can put on the floor and they kind of come apart. So anyway, they're cool. These ones are neat because they have like the Cocoa Knits version of the has like a fuzzy sort of fabric material on one side that is really nice because it's absorbent. So when you're blocking knitwear, it's perfect. We carry those as well.
I think Sandy just uses styrofoam.
Oh, does she?
Yeah, she bought a big piece from a craft store or...
Oh yeah, and it's like a big styrofoam board that, but basically it's stiff, so she like leans it against the wall in her dining room when she's not using it or puts it out in the garage, you know? Mm-hmm. It's kind of a cool thing. Okay. So, trying to pin these out as pointy as possible here. So we can show off Nicole's beautiful lace work. Again, I'm just making sure before I pin these points that I'm matching up my points on both sides so that I'm not pinning in the wrong spot on any of them. Almost there. Got a few more to do. So basically this is it. I mean, you kind of just, really all you're doing with blocking is you're relaxing your stitches, because what's happened is as you've knit them, you know, your tension might change a little from day to day, and so this kind of just helps your stitches relax a little bit into the shape that they're supposed to be in. It'll help to even out your stitches a lot. So if you're a new knitter, you probably find that your gauge changes a lot, and this will really help kind of make it look a little more even. You can also hide a lot of mistakes with blocking sometimes. Depends on the mistake, of course, but you know, it's really handy for that. And then also it really does help to sort of solidify the shape. If you're, say you've knit a sweater and maybe it didn't quite come out as long as you would have liked it, you can actually lengthen your sweater quite a bit by blocking it, soaking it really well in lukewarm water and then blocking it out. I've done that a few times. Same with arms. Like, I've noticed sometimes your arm lengths don't always turn out the way you want them, and so that can help as well. But yeah, there's lots of neat things you can do with blocking. In general, I highly recommend it. I don't do it all the time. If I'm just knitting like a basic beanie or something, it doesn't really have a lot of shape to it, then I don't really stress out about blocking it. You know, there's other things like gloves I don't really block, or, you know, fingerless mitts or anything like that. But stuff that I almost always 100% of the time block is going to be shawls and sweaters and pieces like this that have a definitive stitch pattern that really needs to kind of be brought out by stretching. So the blocking really helps with that. Now notice I've got some bowing here along the top part of the cowl. So what I'm going to do, because I've pulled it all this direction, I'm going to actually come back through now and I'm going to pin these sections a little bit better. And this is normal. I mean, when you stretch anything out, it's going to do this. What's going to happen too, you'll notice with blocking, is that you'll block a piece and then you'll wear it a little bit and it'll relaxed, and so it won't quite be as stretched out as when you first blocked it, which is another good reason to reblock things after a while. So especially with shawls, I find that, you know, it's perfect at first, and then after like a year or so, it's kind of not as defined as it used to be. So don't ever hesitate to reblock something if you've worn it a bit and it doesn't quite do what you want it to anymore. The more that you shouldn't be blocking things like every week, but if you block it a couple times, it's probably going to be more inclined to stay in its, you know, the position you're trying to keep it in. So it'll just relax the yarn even more. So that's pretty much how you would block a lace piece. And, you know, right now it looks funny because it's all stretched out and it's all on this, you know, towel. But once this is dry, you can take all the pins out. And I mean fully, completely dry. You don't want to take it off when it's a little damp. You can, but I try not to do it only because I did that with my cowl that I'm going to show you here pretty soon last time, and I wore it when it was still slightly damp, and it didn't maintain the shape as well as I would have liked it to. So this time I'm going to be sure to let it sit for a good long while and dry completely out before I wear it, because when it's still damp, it'll get misshapen really quickly. So anyway, this looks really nice, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Can't wait.
Yeah, so, and I mean, if you later on want these to be a little more defined, you can also reblock it. What I do sometimes, because towels move around, as you can see how it kind of got wrinkly, I'll usually lay it out on the floor with a couple of towels, and then sometimes I'll put books, like heavy books, on all the corners to kind of anchor it a little bit more, and that helps too, and it keeps it from wrinkling. So if you're finding that this isn't quite as pointy as you want, you can always redo this edge later and you know, anchor it down really well. So that's one way to do it, which is another reason why blocking boards are really handy for that reason. So what's kind of nice about this, and I had Nicole bring in her own towels, is that now what she can do is she can take this home to move it, she can just roll it all up in her towel and take it home and lay it out flat. So that's kind of nice. So that's kind of how you do lace. Essentially, if you've got points like that, really dramatic points, it's really nice to block it. You'll notice that it looks like a million times better. Actually, we were sent a sample shawl actually last year, and I looked at it and I thought, man, this thing is so tiny and it doesn't look right. And so I took it home and I blocked it, and it blocked out enormous, and it was beautiful and it was awesome. And I think like that's the best way to show off your lace projects, is to make sure that you block it really, really well. Okay, so next up we're going to show how to re-block and wash older items. So this other item I have in here, this is like my favorite knitted piece, and it's just a really simple patterned cowl that I knit last year, and I think I wore it like 4 days a week, like all last winter, because, well, A, it's a color that goes with everything, and B, it's just a really cool pattern. This one is actually the Avery Cowl by Melissa LaBar, and it's one of Quince & Company's patterns. And I just loved the patterning in it so much that I had to do it. And I was gifted around that time too, last fall. I was given 4 skeins of Blue Sky Alpaca's worsted, which is like well, it's normally called worsted hand dyes, but this is the undyed color. It's just the natural, and it's awesome. It's like 50% wool, 50% alpaca, and it's just really gorgeous stuff. So I, of course, had to cast on immediately, and then I wore this thing to death. And so I've actually already washed this, re-washed this one time before, but that was the time that I was so anxious to wear it that I kind of jumped the gun, and it was still a little damp, and so it didn't really hold its shape very well. So today we're going to reblock it. And this one isn't a super exciting item to block because it is just a cowl, and it's, you know, there's nothing super spectacular about the blocking process, but because you just kind of lay it flat and you don't even really have to pin it. But I will show you one thing that I do with this particular cowl. I'm trying to find I think this is Laura's towel. I'm not sure that it's entirely clean.
You can use the other one.
Okay. Alright, we're going to switch towels. So, this is a nice big beach towel. Okay. So one reason that I really like to reblock this cowl pretty frequently is that I think in a perfect world, I would have actually made this cowl a little less long and a little wider. But because I can block it occasionally, which is good because it needs to be washed anyway, it's a light colored yarn and it's nice to just sort of clean it up since it gets worn a lot. Because I love it so much. I can kind of fudge the width a little bit when I block it, and at least for a little while it maintains that shape. It makes it really nice. So, getting all of the moisture out of this. And this is a tougher one, a tougher yarn, because it is very absorbent. It's a heavy worsted, so it's going to hold a lot more water than the last one that we just blocked. And at home, this is what I do.
That's what I do too.
So I just kind of go up and down and up and down and up and down until I feel confident that most of the water has been absorbed. Usually it results in the knees of whatever pants I'm wearing getting a little bit wet. But hey, stuff dries, right? Okay. So, this is the reason I do that instead of, you know, just throwing it in and kind of, you know, drying it with the towel roughly, is because obviously it's wool. You want to be gentle with it. The more you agitate your wool, the more of a chance you have that it's going to felt. So we don't want that to happen. Alright, so I've got my cowl, and you can see that the patterning here, it's, you know, it's a little bit skinny. When you wear it, it's really not so bad, and it's fine. It's just, in my mind, if I had shortened it just a tiny bit and maybe gone an extra, you know, half repeat on the pattern, I would have preferred it more. But then again, I'm a really tall person, and for me, this just seems a little skinny. So what I kind of do to fudge that a bit is, as I block it, I stretch it out. So you can actually do this with a lot of your knitted stuff. Just pull it kind of out as you're getting it ready to lay flat. And what this does is it at least, in the very least, dries it in this wider shape. So even though it's not necessarily going to maintain this exact width forever, it's going to be kind of manipulating the shape to more what I would prefer. So, and then what I would probably do with this to kind of keep it as straight as possible is I might pin these out, but I would use pins that are a little closer together than the last cowl that we saw, just because this is a very straight edge and you want it to be, you don't want it to buckle like that, you don't want it to pull up or anything. So, but really I think this is going to be okay on its own without pins this time, because I'm looking at it and I think it's pretty close to the way I want it. So it's nice. This is a really light color, and so, you know, it tends to get dirty a little more quickly. There's even kind of a dirty spot that doesn't seem to want to come out, but, you know, doing a wool wash and soaking it is a really great way to kind of clean it as much as possible. And, you know, it's really good to condition your knits every now and again too, and just take good care of them, especially the ones you love the most, like my cowl here. Nicole will probably vouch for the fact that she saw this on me at least 4 days a week last year.
And I loved it every time.
I love it. It just goes with everything I have, so it's like the
super
perfect.
soft.
Yeah. And it's warm because it's like 50% alpaca. So, anyways, that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. It's not perfect, but it doesn't really need to be, and I don't think it really can get much straighter than that. And then I would just let this sit for a couple days like that and let it dry. Maybe like in a day or so I'd check it, and if this side feels really dry, I might flip it over and turn the other side up and let it dry on top, just to kind of even it out a little bit. But that's pretty much it. I mean, this is how I would reblock a lot of my stuff. Now, one thing I didn't really cover is blocking wires. You can use blocking wires, and they're actually really awesome for lace pieces because you can run the wires through the pointy tips. You just get a really thin wire and you can run them right through the pointy tips on your shawl and then pin them out that way. It actually stretches everything out really well. So you, on a piece like this, you would actually run one wire this way, one wire this way, and a wire across the top. Stretch the wires out, pin the wires, and then you can pin them down to whatever you're blocking on, and then you have perfectly even, straight, you know, points. So that's a really, really nice option if you've got it. I know a lot of people have just made their own blocking wires using really thin, like copper tubing or wire they got from the hardware store. So again, there's lots of ways to make these tools without having to invest a lot of money. You can just get the parts and make it yourself, and there's even tons of tutorials online that I found on how to do a lot of, like, make a lot of that stuff on your own. So yeah, blocking, it's fun. It makes your pieces look amazing. So honestly, you really can't go wrong. I've talked to a lot of knitters who are afraid of blocking, and the one thing I can just say is don't be afraid. It's literally, I mean, unless you're gonna accidentally like put a black, like a deep black dyed piece in with a cream colored piece, there's really not much you can do to ruin your yarn. So just be really careful when you're blocking to don't, you know, separate your lights from your darks, essentially. And as long as you do that, you really can't ruin your items. I mean, I would never recommend blocking in your washing machine. Always do it in a sink. You know, unless you're going to felt something and you really are intending to felt it, then do it in your washing machine. But other than that, I mean, blocking is really a simple process. You really can't do much to ruin your garments. It really can only make them look better. And just, you know, basic simple tools you already have around your house is all you need. You know, you don't have to use a fancy wool wash. You can just use warm water if that's all you have. You just need some pins and a big towel, really. I mean, and that's it. And it's really simple, and I can't stress enough how awesome it makes your knitted pieces look. So don't ever be afraid to try it on any of your stuff. And if you have questions, you know, we're here for you all the time. So if you do want to give us a call after watching these videos and you still have some questions that we haven't answered, feel free to give us a ring, and we're happy to walk you through your first blocking experiment. So thank you so much for watching. Again, I'm Kristen from Jimmy Bean's Wool, and I hope you have a great day and happy blocking and good luck and have fun with it. Bye!
Thunder rumbles on this American summer night.